Hi folks, welcome back to the channel. You might have noticed, or maybe you didn't, that despite the fact that it is now very early June, it's the 2nd of June as I'm filming this, I did not give you an April wrap-up. And now we're into June. Basically what happened is I was in a slump in May. I mean, it's basically what that's essentially what it comes down to. May was a very slumpy month. I only finished 3 books, I think, so far below what I've been averaging the rest of the start of the year. But it was kind of to be expected. My reading has been at such a high quantity and quality. I think if I'm being real, like it's been an excellent reading year so far. But yeah, it was never going to be sustainable, and May was like, yeah, slow down, girl. So we did. But that reading slump also translated into a content slump. So I'm actually currently filming a video that is going to be from the 1st to the 7th of June. We are obviously on day 2, it is Tuesday, and it's essentially a gentle reboot. I'm getting life back on track a little bit, and I'm setting myself like little small manageable goals every day, and today's goal was film my wrap-ups. So you're going to get a combined April and May wrap-up. And with all of that waffling, we're just going to get straight into it. We're going to start with the... Ooh, that is bright, let's pop you over there. I'm going to start with the DNFs first. Yes, I've got 3 to talk to you about. So the first one was The Salt Path by Rainer Wynn. This was the April book club pick for my local in-person book club that's run by our local library. The books for this book club get picked well in advance, at least a year or so in advance. So when this particular book was picked, Shireen, our librarian, wasn't very aware of the controversy surrounding it, of the debate about its authenticity, whether or not it was actually true or not. So she pitched it to us once she sort of like realised, was like, do we still want to read this book, or do we try to get something different in? At which point we all sort of unanimously agreed. The library, the overall library system, they already own the books. By reading it, we are not supporting the author any further. And we're also not going to be actively harming her if it turns out that all of this actually was true and the allegations are unfounded. So we decided we'll go ahead, we'll read it, but with that sort of lens of how do we feel about it. So The Salt Path is, according to the author, a autobiographical, it's a memoir, it's a travel memoir where our author and her husband fall on very hard times. He's just had a devastating health diagnosis, which is potentially terminal. They've just lost their house, they've just lost their jobs, they're penniless, they're left with nothing, and they're trying to go like, what do we do here? Like, where do we go from here? And they decide to say, well, do you know what, we literally have nothing to lose now, and we're going to walk the Salt Path, which is a particular route down in England somewhere. My geography is not great. I can just about keep up with Scottish geography, and that's only because of my job. And yeah, they set off with a little help from friends along the way and all these people that they meet. I got about halfway through it. Where did I get to? No, I didn't. I DNF'd at 28%. I struggled with this a lot. Having read that 28% and looked at all the reviews and all the people who have come forward being like, yeah, what she wrote in the book, that is not what happened. Looked at a lot of the allegations. Like, I've done a bit of research into this, and I can safely say I firmly fall on the line of, I believe as a couple they went for a walk. I do not think it was as impactful as they would believe. I do not think it was as difficult and life-altering as she would believe. I do not believe her husband's diagnosis was as severe as they would let us on. I think there is a grain of truth to this, but I think it has been excessively embellished to the point that when I was reading this, I was just like, I can't believe any of this. Some of the choices they were making, they just didn't make sense. Like, no sense whatsoever. And yeah, so I really, really struggled with it. In book club, we were quite split between how many of us managed to finish it and how many of us did finish it. But overall, I don't think anyone came away from book club being like, actually, yeah, no, I really enjoyed this book and it was really inspiring. Yeah. Personally, if I was a publisher, I would not have published it. But it's also, you know, I do have to acknowledge that travel memoirs are not my preferred genre. Look at my bookshelves. You do not see travel memoirs on here. You see pure fiction. So, you know, there is that grain of salt of, I am not the intended audience. This is not my genre. This is not my preferred reading. So, yeah. The next one that I DNF'd was How to Kill a Guy in 10 Ways. Now, I did not pick this up expecting it to be award-winning. I didn't pick it up expecting it to be the most amazing thing I've ever read. I wasn't expecting a new favourite. I was expecting a good time. I did this on audiobook. And the narration itself is fine. The accent, I think it's just the narrator's natural accent comes through. I think it's a very Essex kind of accent. It's not my favourite, but it does really match and really suit the book, so that's fine. But yeah, I went into this. This is, where are we? What's even her name? Millie. We're following Millie, who she volunteers for this hotline where women can phone up or text it and be like, I'm in a tricky situation, you know, I've locked myself in the bathroom, I really need to get away from my date, I'm concerned maybe either he's just being really slimy or I'm concerned he's put something in my drink, whatever. They can text or call this hotline and Millie will come and do something and help them get out of the situation. You know, usually like, you know, ring their phone, make a fake emergency, or like come get them, dial an Uber, whatever. Whilst doing on one of these calls, she comes to a girl who has been drugged. She has been taken back with this guy to his house and he is moments away from assaulting her. And in the scuffle to get away, Millie basically accidentally throws him down a set of stairs and he dies. Now in the background of all of this, sort of like a few years now actually, I think, before this is set, something very similar happened to Millie's sister, and unfortunately her sister was not lucky enough to get away and is suffering very real traumatic consequences. Her mental health has completely declined. She's a shut-in, she never leaves her room, she's basically a shell, she's broken, and she's really struggled to get past this and to, you know, process and cope with it. So Millie has now set out to try and find the guy who did this to her sister, and is starting to take out various other guys who put other women in these situations. Now all of this sounds very, very serious because obviously the topic of sexual assault is very serious. The problem with this one is I start off really wanting to root for Millie and being like, heck yeah, women's revenge, we love this. And you really, really want to root for Millie. Because initially you're like, she's a strong, independent woman, and you're like, yes! Yes! And you want to get behind her. But by the time you get to the halfway point, she's starting to make some really stupid decisions. She's starting to jump to a lot of conclusions with not much backup. And I was really struggling. I was like, I cannot support you in this because I know you're doing wrong. I mean, obviously killing anyone, regardless of what they've done, is wrong. But you're not even checking, and it's like the guys you're targeting now, they could be innocent. You don't know that because you are so blinded now that the slightest connection, you're like, it's that guy. So yeah, I got to the point where I think the guy that she was away to take out in the next couple of chapters was probably innocent, and I just, she no longer became a character I can root for, and was just like, okay, someone needs to catch you and put you in jail now, because you're just making really dumb decisions. And it's one of my biggest things. It's gonna immediately put me off of characters when they just start making unnecessarily dumb decisions, like uncharacteristic dumb decisions, and that's what we're getting in here. So that was sad, but you know, that's how it is. And then the last one I DNF'd was, I'm sorry to say, but I think this is me with this author. We're done now. But that was The Soulmate Equation by Christina Lauren. So this was the second novel I've attempted to read. I did read, what is it called? Lauren. Where does Lauren live? In the alphabet on my shelf. J-K-L. Up there. I read The Unhoneymooners. And actually, I really enjoyed The Unhoneymooners. I read The Unhoneymooners. I got it as it was like a blind date with a book, and I think I vlogged it. It's down here. It's in my archive somewhere. And yeah, I had a really good time with that. I really enjoyed it. It left me going, I want to read more by Christina Lauren. And then I read Fallen, I think it's called, which was a short story. It was one of the Amazon Prime original short stories. I think it was part of the Halloween collection. And it was terrible. Like, it was terrible. Very insta-love, like nothing made sense. It was just like, why? And I was like, you know what? It's okay. Maybe short stories aren't their forte. Maybe paranormal is not their forte. Maybe they just need slightly longer contemporary romances. It's fine. We'll call this one a blip. After that, I read, just a couple of months ago, it was another Amazon original short story, and it was part of their second Meet Cute collection. Now this is how impactful it was. It wasn't so terrible that I can still remember it. I can't remember what it's called off the top of my head, and I can't remember what it was about. I just know I read a Christina Lauren that made no impression. Now I have my laptop here and I could go look it up for you, but I can't be bothered. So, this brings us to the Soulmate Equation. This has been on my shelf for a couple of years now. I think I bought it in Aldi's. It was like £3 in Aldi's a couple of years ago, so I was like, you know, we'll give it a shot. I've owned this longer than I've owned The Unhoneymooners. We are following Jess and River. River is the co-founder and part owner of a matchmaking service, essentially, or like a dating app that matches people up based on their genetic makeup. So, you know, you spit into a little vial, send it off, they profile your DNA, whatever, and then they match you up. Jess is a down on her luck single mom freelance marketing. She works with numbers and marketing, and I don't know, my brain starts tuning off when we start talking about her work, if I'm perfectly honest. And yeah, they match, and they have an almost perfect match. But here's the thing, Jess is really not interested in dating. She was just having a really, really bad shitty day, and her friend had gotten her the kit, and so she's back into it and sent it off, and woke up the next morning and was like, ugh, why did I even do that? Doesn't expect anything to come of it. But she matches with River. River is someone who she knows in passing because they frequent the same coffee shop, but they never really interact. Except that a couple of days before they matched, they did have a really not great interaction. He cut her off in the car park. He didn't hold the elevator from her. They've basically had like the opposite of a meet cute. But they decide to kind of give it a shot. It's not quite fake dating, but they're basically his company's like, tell you what, like, you're really down on your luck. I know you don't have time for this, but what if we pay you to go on a few outings with River and to give this a try? We're not expecting you to sleep with him or anything. Like, we're drawing a line there. But what if we make it so you're more financially secure so that you can commit to this? Because she's really struggling financially. And yeah, they're basically fake dating to see whether or not they are an anomaly or this all genuinely works. And I don't know if you can see from like the scratch it, like where I've broken the spine, but I basically got to there. I got halfway through it. There's nothing bad. There is nothing wrong with this book. I just wasn't connecting. It wasn't hooking me in. I wasn't feeling the chemistry, and ultimately I just didn't care. A contemporary rom-com like this, especially one set in STEM, it should have taken me 2-3 sittings at most. If this was an Allie Hazelwood, I would have eaten it up in a day. But it's not an Allie Hazelwood. It's a Christina Lauren, and after a week I was still lonely here, and I was really reluctant to pick it up, so I decided to call it quits and be like, goodbye, soulmate equation. It entered my DNF pile. And so yeah, Christina Lauren has very much become that author duo who they're not a, no, don't touch them with a barge pole. But they're not an author I'm going to be running to. And if I read them again, it's going to be for something like a book club, or because someone has convinced me that there's a gem of a book that I am genuinely going to enjoy. Okay. So we got that out of the way. Those are the DNFs, and it took me almost 20 minutes. God help us all. The rest of it should run through pretty quickly because 6 books I'm not going to tell you too much about. And I may as well just get these over and done with. So this reading wrap up is not in any order whatsoever. But, yeah. Oh, come on. Christina Lauren, you're just full of problems. Yeah. But I read all 6. I only have 3 physically. I read the other 3 on my Kindle. They were the last books I read on my Kindle. But I play D&D on a Friday. Most Fridays, and one of the guys I play with was reading these and was really getting into them. So I joined Friday session as normal, and I get from Zoe pipes up, she's like, oh Flo, don't you want to ask Amy something? And me going, our characters have got quite a bit happening, like they've got a bit of a character arc going. Flo's character is probably the one that my character interacts with the most, so I was like, okay, where does he want us to go next? And he's like, oh, Amy, have you heard of the Game Changer series? To which, of course I've heard of Game Changer. Who hasn't heard of Game Changer and Heated Rivalry at this point, if you're in the book sphere, right? So my reply was, I have absolutely no intention of reading these whatsoever. They are way too popular. The hype is so high. I do not want to read these. At which point was like, oh, I need someone else to read them with me. Because I'm really enjoying them. They're kind of shit, but really, really enjoyable. And I was in one of those moods. It's like he said the perfect words for the perfect mood, and I was like, okay, fine. So I ordered the first one, which is Game Changer. One of the last books I purchased off Amazon, because I'm trying to step away from Amazon. Yeah. I ordered it on the Friday, it arrived on the Saturday, I'd finished it by Sunday. So then I went to Tesco's. And then I went to the Works. This is all on the Sunday. And then I went to the other Tesco's. Bought a few other books in between. And finally managed to get a copy of Heated Rivalry. This book is really hard to get hold of a physical copy in Inverness without resorting to the internet. You cannot get a copy of Game Changer. At which point I was hooked and I read books 3, 4 and 5 as ebooks because they're not physically available unless I went into Waterstones, but quite frankly I didn't want to pay full price for them. Because I couldn't afford to pay full price for all 6 books in 1 month. And then finally picked up The Long Game in Tesco's on offer. I am not going to tell you more than that. I read them. I read all 6 of them, so you know I'm feeling fairly positive about them. I read, you know, most of them in the space of a day or 2. However, I am currently working on, I'm scripting it a little bit, just making sure I'm getting all my thoughts sort of like as a proper, coherent, in book order. And you will be getting a dedicated Heated Rivalry reading review, series review. So, that was a very long-winded way to say, I read Game Changer, all 6 books. I don't know what I'm doing with my life. I really don't know what I'm doing with my life. But here we are. And to show you just how out of order things are getting, the very first book I read in April was actually The Night We Met by Abby Jimenez. And this was wonderful. This was so good. I had such a good time. We are following Larissa and Chris. Now, Larissa is actually dating Chris's best friend, or one of his friends. The Night We Met refers to about 6 months to a year ago. They'd all been to concerts separately. And Larissa she'd been introduced to the guys, but she needed a lift home, and there was sort of like a little bit of debate of who was going to give her a lift home. Chris came across as quite reluctant to give her a lift home, so she ended up going home with... I cannot remember his name because I read this 2 months ago. But she ends up going home with Chris's friend instead. They hit it off, they start dating. Now, flash forward 6 months to a year or so, and just through a series of coincidences, Larissa and Chris are starting to spend a lot more time together and are starting to develop feelings. But she's dating his friend. And things kind of start getting a little bit messy. They're both very reluctant to do or even admit to themselves what they're feeling because she's dating his friend. And yeah, this is my boyfriend's friend romance. But in true Abby Jimenez style, it is absolutely wonderful. The characters were incredible. The chemistry was beautiful. I believed every minute of it. And we're also tackling, in true Abby Jimenez style, this is very much romance plus. Because we're tackling some heavier themes which just naturally come hand in hand with real people. Trigger warnings for alcoholism, PTSD, money problems, unreliable parents, and so on and so forth. And the way they are handled is just, it's so sensitively, it's just wonderful. I think, I'm not sure this would be the one I recommend as an introduction to Abby Jimenez. For me, I think that would still be any of them from the Part of Your World trilogy. But I loved this. It was worth however long it's been since I pre-ordered it. So good. Okay. Then I'm just gonna go with my last physical book because that's what we're doing. I'm holding up a physical book, but I actually read this on audio because why not? But that is Her Majesty's Royal Coven by Juno Dawson. I have a little bit of mixed feelings about this. Overall, very positive. I really enjoyed this. We are following a contemporary coven, so it's a modern day coven, known as Her Majesty's Royal Coven. They are a coven which, when they were first founded, they were founded by Queen Victoria way back when, to do secret witchy government business, keep everything safe, etc, etc. but we're now modern day. And it's more following the internal politics of the Coven. A prophecy has been made that a child will appear and will have basically summoned a demon that is going to result in end of days. I think we're going to get more into that in the next book. This book is very much a setup book. And it's following a lot more of the internal, almost like small town feel politics. There's a lot of discourse on gender identity. One of the characters that we follow are very much questioning their gender identity, and they're questioning how well the sex they were assigned at birth fits them as a person. This does not go down well with the Coven because the Coven is female only. If you are born male, you become part of the not conclave. I can't remember what the male equivalent is, but it's not called a coven, it's just called whatever the male equivalent is called. But yeah, it's very strict gender division. So there's a lot of debate goes on around this. Our main, I don't quite want to say villain, although she does essentially become a villain in the end, but our main antagonist within this book is basically J.K. Rowling. I honestly think that this book was written by Juno Dawson in response to J.K. Rowling. What I think was done really well is the way the characters interacted with each other, the justifications that were given for some really shitty decisions just felt really real, and unfortunately we are seeing real life examples of these decision making and justifications in the real world today. Which meant that this book is not an escapism read. Do not read this trying to escape reality. It is rooted in our really, really shitty reality right now. It made me question myself as a cis white woman, and I want to say it made me... I don't regret the fact that I'm a cis white woman, but it really highlighted like the power imbalance and, you know, how easy I have it as a cis white woman. And it made me really ashamed of cis white women who are not quite as accepting or inclusive. Yeah. So it's hard. This is a really good book. It is really, really well written. It's not a popcorn read. It's not an escapism read. And this kind of have been my bread and butter for a while. So I'm really glad I stuck with this. The amount it made me think. I'm still thinking about it, and it's been over a month since I read it. It's definitely one that sticks with you, and I absolutely want to continue on with the series. But it's not going to have you kicking your feet and giggling away. It's not going to be you know, sit down and read it in a day and just it's not a no-brains book. It's kind of what I'm trying to say, but very, very worth reading, I think. Yes. And I do apologise if it came off as like less than enthusiastic. It's not a book that leaves you going... It is a book that can leave you going, holy crap, that was an amazing read, but it's not like a, holy crap, that was amazing, and like it doesn't give you a sugar rush in the way that like Hate Rivalry did, you know? Very, very different books. But yeah, this was Her Majesty's Royal Coven. This one has actually, as well, this one had been on my shelves since, I want to say 2023. I bought this with the Waterstones voucher that I was very, very generously gifted by my colleagues when I left the lab. So it was nice to finally get around to it. And now we consult Now we consult Storygraph, so I can figure out what I have missed, because I know I've missed something. I need to tell you about the last 4 books I finished. How are they the ones, like the ones that are most recent, they're the ones I forgot about? Yeah, Okay, let's do this in kind of order. So, people may or may not have heard about the rather... I think this is my word of the video. A rather shitty move that Amazon made in terms of their older Kindles where they've completely stopped support, or they were planning to. I think they have now. I have not put my Kindle on since. But they were planning to stop support for older Kindles, which means you could still use your Kindle, you could still read what's on it, but you wouldn't be able to download any new books onto it. Basically meaning you needed to replace your Kindle if you wanted to continue reading new books. I had already been thinking I needed to replace my Kindle because its battery life wasn't great. Compared to, if it's not obvious, I own one of those older Kindles. But compared to when I first bought it, the battery life was only lasting about a day or two. It used to last weeks. So I had already been contemplating and looking into getting it replaced, and I'd already been leaning towards buying a Kobo. But this was the nail. This was the nail in the coffin. This is what broke me. And I was like, right, okay, no, it's fine. So I did. I bought a Kobo. And since I've just bought a new shiny Kobo, I want to be reading on it. And one of the ebooks that I read was Time to Shine by Rachel Reed, author of these guys. So this was a really fun one. This was one, she wrote it after the 6 books for Game Changer. It is still a gay hockey romance, still set in Canada, and we are following our 2 protagonists. What are they called? We all know I don't do names. Landon and Casey. Casey is already part of the team Calgary. So Casey is already part of the Calgary NHL team. He's not a goalie. I'm not a hockey person, guys. All of my hockey knowledge at this point comes from Heated Rivalry. Okay? It all comes from Rachel Reed. But either way, Casey is the guy who hits the puck into the net. Landon is a goalie. Landon has just been called up from the lower league because the backup goalie for the NHL team is out long-term with injury, or at least semi-long-term with injury. So Landon's been called up to fill in for a couple of weeks. He's fully expecting it to be very, very temporary and head off. Instant connection. This was so cute. So cute. I really wanted to see how Rachel Reed got on writing a book that did not include Ilya Rozanov, who Ilya is one of the main characters in Heated Rivalry and The Long Game. And he cameos in literally every book. He is Rachel Reed's favourite character, you can tell. She's quite open about that, so fair enough. But I really wanted to see how she got on writing a book without him cameoing in it. And she did wonderfully. This was one of my favourite Rachel Reeds that I've read. And it's the 7th one I've read, so I've read a few of them now. But it is just, they are just a pair of shy, socially awkward in different ways, on the younger side guys who neither think they're good enough for the other, but they also end up living together. So when it becomes obvious that Landon is going to be there for more than just a week or so, rather than continuing to live in the hotel or trying to find somewhere temporary to live, Casey's like, do you know what, I've got a really, really big house. It's actually almost too big. You wouldn't be in the way. We can obviously car share to work, because, you know, we work together. Why don't you just come move in with me? Here's the thing, Casey is actually really lonely. He's that socially awkward butterfly, and that he can go up and he can talk to anybody, but he really struggles to make long-term meaningful connections. Landon is a painfully shy wallflower and also very socially awkward, but almost the complete opposite from how it portrays in Casey. And he's doing his best to just stay out of the way and not bother anybody and not inconvenience anybody. And just watching these two kind of like circle around each other a little bit, but also instinctually know what the other needs and meet them where they're at with no judgment, with just, okay, that's a quirk you have. Okay, and I just accept that. It was so cute. It was so cozy. It was lovely. And I think we had a bit of, I'm going to go so far as to say we had asexual representation in this, which genuinely did not expect from Rachel Reid, because these books are, they're not fade to black, closed door, okay? So yeah, that was a really, really pleasant, and I had such a good time. So I think if you want to explore Rachel Reid's writing, but you don't want to commit to Game Changer, because 6 books is quite a commitment. I'd only ever intended to read the first 2. That was all I committed to, and then, well, it all happened. But I think if you want a taste of her writing, and some of her best writing, Time to Shine is absolutely worth picking up. I really want to pick up the next one. I think I've bought the next one. Can't remember what it's called, but it's another standalone. But I'm trying not to... There's a really good chance that I had such a good time with Game Changer series that was a contributing factor to my May slump. So I'm trying to tame that in a bit. Yes, the next book that I finished, or the next books I'm going to tell you about, because I don't know anymore order-wise, but that was Automatic Noodle by Annalee Newitz. This is a novella. I did this one audiobook and it was only 4.25 hours. So really nice and short and palatable, but it's set in the future, in a post-Civil War America, where California is now annexed and it's no longer part of the United States. In a world where robots and androids are completely normal, we've had them for quite a while. They have rights to an extent. They are fully, I want to say they are fully sentient, essentially. But Automatic Noodle, basically, we are following this small group of robots who have just sort of like woken up / rebooted a little bit, to find that their previous owner is no longer about, and they are now in a situation where they kind of have to fend for themselves, but also figure out what they want to do, because there's no one giving them instructions. And they decide that they have been working in this fast food restaurant as per their owner's requirements, and they decide that they want to continue the restaurant. They want to keep it going, but for themselves, just to prove to themselves that they can do it. It's not a we don't need no human kind of book, but it's a no, we're doing this for us and we want to show that we are capable and earn our own money and be self-sufficient. So they do a bit of research and they decide to start a noodle shop, and they start off with just one dish, and they put all the research into perfecting this one dish. And the restaurant takes off and it starts really booming in popularity, and then it starts getting 1-star bombed. And review bombed, whatever we call it. And they kind of have to try and figure out why. It's linked in a little bit to the Civil War, in sort of like more the motivations behind the Civil War, the prejudice towards robots, human supremacy, etc. So it's very much a look on. It's basically an analogy for racism. It was quite well done. At times I feel like the world building, it needed to be longer. I want to know more about the war. I want to know more about a lot of the world as it is now. I want to know more. We're fed so much dribs and drabs about the world building and everything that's happening. It's like, I love this little story that we have about this little group of robots who are, they're so wholesome slice of life and are just doing their utmost best to, you know, for quite a while just to stay afloat and discover the joy in life and what they can do and what they can bring to the world. But I want to know more about everything outside their bubble, which obviously in a 4-hour book you can't get. So that would be my main criticism about it, is that I wanted more. And I feel like what we got whilst it was a self-contained story, and this has won a couple of awards, I think. It was definitely Goodreads' choice. It's been up for, I can't remember if it won the Hugo for the novella, but it was definitely up, nominated for it, and absolutely worthy. Wholly agree with all of those. Like, if I were voting, it's what I would have voted for. I just wanted more, and it did leave me that little bit dissatisfied of, I feel like I lost out on something. I don't know if that makes any sense, but it's what it left me with. But if you were looking for like a relative palate cleanser, like I say, it's only 4 hours, and it is just a really cute, wholesome story, and I would really recommend it. After that, sticking to a very similar trait, I read the Cybernetic Tea Shop. So this is a short story. It was only 96 pages by Meredith Katz. And it's kind of a little romance between a human and an android. We follow the human character. I can't remember what they're called. But she leads quite a nomadic life. She's basically a android mechanic. But every couple of months to a year, she gets itchy feet and she picks up and she moves on. She arrives, so we kind of find her as like she's moving on. She's arrived in this new city. She's managed to secure work easy enough, and she stops one day at this tea shop on her lunch break, and she sees this android, and we discover that android has worked in this tea shop for quite a while. I want to say like 150 years. Is one of the oldest. I think her particular model is no longer legal, or like can no longer be made, and she is only here by virtue of the fact that she predates the law. She is also unfortunately being regularly harassed with those prejudice against androids and who don't believe that they should have the same rights as humans, despite the fact that they are sentient beings at this point. She's continuing to work and manage and try to maintain this tea shop, despite the fact that her previous owner died a significant length of time ago. And yeah, over the course of these pages, these like 96 pages, they slowly get to know each other. The human character is initially kind of fascinated with the android, but more from a professional point of view of like, you're what I fix. And it's, you know, there is like conversations like, I'm so sorry if like I'm staring. It's like, I'm not trying to be weird and creepy. It's just your actual like makeup, like your physical makeup and the technicality that goes into your being is genuinely fascinating to me. And from there, like obviously personalities and things come out and they start to blossom a bit. And yeah, again, another. It's often the case when you read a short story or a novella. My biggest complaint is it was too short. I think it would have benefited from at least another 50 pages, because as cute and wholesome as it was, the relationship did feel very surface level for the most part. It wasn't as easy to get behind and root for them, because I feel like we were still in those very early tentative stages of a romance. And it's really hard to get that depth in so short amount of pages. So yeah. And then finally, I've got one more book to talk to you about, and hopefully I'm going to keep this one really, really short, because in one of my next videos, the video is literally going to start with a review of this book. So an upcoming video is going to be a Robin Hood vlog, where I read a couple of Robin Hood based / inspired books, and I went to Robin Hood Festival with a couple of friends and was literally in Sherwood Forest. So my friends also read this book. Actually, we both did it on audio. And so we open up the vlog with reviewing it. This was almost like our pre-homework. But what we decided to read was Outlaw, The Story of Robin Hood by Michael Morpurgo. I hate saying his name out loud. It just sounds wrong when I say it, I think. Michael Morpurgo is more commonly known as the author of Warhorse. You know, that film that made us all cry? Yeah, he wrote the book. But this is a children's book, or middle grade I think is what it would be classed as, and it's basically a retelling of Robin Hood. And I had a pretty fun time with it. I did have to listen to it at 1.25 speed because listening to it at just normal 1 times speed, the narrator's not the fastest at talking. And 1.25 really just, it was a really sweet spot and it worked better. I actually listened to this in the car going down to Rachel's. It was pretty much, it's a 4-hour book. It takes about 4 hours to get from Inverness to the Central Belt these days, thanks to all the roadworks and things on the A9. So it was kind of a perfect way to start that trip. And yeah, I had quite a fun time reading it. Overall, I really enjoyed it, but as you'll see in the reviews, we do have quite a few criticisms. And I'm just kind of going to leave you there on that little cliffhanger because you will just need to watch the Robin Hood vlog when it comes up to learn more about it. But anyway, I feel like this is almost an hour long, but it is 2 months worth of reading. Despite the fact that I didn't probably tell you about 6 of them, but you know, we're just going to go with it. Obviously, I have by not talking about books essentially for a month, I have really needed to ramble at you. And yeah, it is 2 months worth of books, so not too bad. If you were to average it out, I did a very high reading month and then a low month, but when they average out, they were, you know, it was pretty much like where I would expect to be on any given month. So yeah, I'm happy with that. Like I said, I'm currently filming another vlog separate to the Robin Hood one that is all about gently rebooting my life and getting a couple of little bits back on track. So that's another future video to look forward to. And in the meantime, I'm going to shut up and I'm going to go. Let me know what you've been reading, what have you been enjoying lately, down in the comments. Like if you want to, I guess, subscribe if you fancy it, if you haven't already. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!